for example, 2000, which can happen. You got to watch your width and your height. So if you make an image 1400 wide and your height is 1600,
Then your 1600 becomes 1280 and you maintain aspect ratio and forget about the 1400.
that's right. You forget about the 1400. So you got to look at the maximum height and the maximum width. That's what I'm saying.
Correct. And then adjust for the one that's exceeding and
Exactly.
maintain aspect ratio.
Exactly.
Is everybody clear?
Yep.
Yeah, I think we should change because our images are very small. They're all under a megabyte and they're really not very high res at all.
Well, you're not doing that right now, I assure you, because they are all over the board tonight, and they were all over the board last month.
Well, some people are not reading the instructions that they were supposed to do, but maybe we could fix that. What would you recommend we adopt? 1900 or
1400. 1400.
14, I would go to at least 14. I like 1920 because depending on your judges, if you're going to, presuming that you're going to keep doing it virtually for a while, then 1400 is still pretty small on a 27 inch, 32 inch, especially 32-inch monitor. 1400 really becomes small. So, I mean,
PSA is usually
you want it to be, you want your judges to be seeing their pictures in their best light. Um, I'm just going down through years. The first one's 1900 wide, then 1024, then 5148, then 2048, then 4069, then 4096, then 2254, 4500. I can go on. I mean, they're all over the board tonight. And then I get down to some of the smallest ones, and again, they're down at 8 900. I think I saw one that really really tiny.
those 8 900 ones I really think are an innocent mistake, don't you?
Here's one that's 948 by 782.
It's got to be an innocent mistake.
Well, maybe, but then the next one is 6734 by 4843,
That's a nice camera.
and then the
what
next
about
one, the next one is 640 by 444.
Yeah, that should be tossed out because it's going to look terrible.
Hutch, what resolution? 140 or would you go to 300?
Oh, I don't- it, that's we used to worry about that. I think when it was the internet speeds were so bad, but now that a lot of clubs will put a maximum file size on. I know at Channel Islands Professionals, our minimum width is 4,000, and so they try to get us to go to 772 because frankly theoretically anything over 72 when it's on the internet isn't going to make much difference. They also try to get us to use compression at 10, but we're transferring huge files. So, obviously whoever's inputting your images isn't too worried about accepting big images because most of yours I think are at 72, 72, 72, 72, 300, 300, 300. So most of yours are either 72 or 300, it appears. A few 240s. I generally send mine in at 240. It's kind of a pain in the neck. You want to edit in 240 or 300 and then resizing down to 72 or 240 or whatever just makes that much more work. So I don't think most groups really worry about it.
Well, maybe we could have the powers that be in the group make some decisions as to what they'd like to see. But I agree with you. Any judge would like to see them all about the same size. That would make it a lot easier.
I really think it doesn't matter a whole heck of a lot as long as they're all consistent. I mean, that's
Yeah, exactly. Club to club, it levels the playing field. They're all consistent, whatever format is determined to be adequate for them.
Somehow I think the powers that be will take care of this problem.
Are you one of the powers to be?
I'm one of them. but I'm not the power to be. The board is,
Oh,
and all. But we've started discussing that, and we really appreciate the discussion here because it's really helpful for us to make a decision. Thank you very much, everybody.
Some clubs set a maximum width and warn their people that they can go smaller at their own risk with the judge. And then
don't you
tell the
think,
judge that presentation is part of the judging.
don't you think it's an advantage for the artist to send the biggest picture they can so the judge actually can see it at a really good size to give
I've
it
already,
a fair judging?
Jerry, I've already done that. I've already checked
Oh,
if a larger sized file versus a 1400 maximum
oh,
actually makes any difference. In
oh,
fact,
it
it
does.
does
Oh,
not.
Well, it will on a big monitor, but
Not in a Zoom screen. You as the judge are seeing it differently than we are because you are
no,
locally looking
wait
at those
till
files.
you're going to be seeing what I see on. We'll see tonight. I believe you're going to be seeing what I see on Lightroom because it's going to broadcast my Lightroom screen. So we'll test it tonight, but there virtually getting anything over 3200 wide is a waste regardless. At 3200, if you got a 32-inch monitor, maybe, but bigger does not make a difference. I would agree. After a certain point, depending on the monitor it's being viewed on
uh-huh.
And the method of transmission.
and the method of transmission. Yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
Lloyd, you're muted.
I'm going to unmute me. Um, the bigger doesn't necessarily make it better, and that was especially what my horse used to say about me when I would get up on him and he'd complain a little bit. So I want to welcome everybody, to our April meeting. April Fools has passed, and we are recording this meeting so that we can preserve these pearls of wisdom from each and every one of us, most especially our judge tonight. And I wanted to let you know that Joy, our recording secretary, has moved to Florida. So I wanted to thank her for all the hard work she did on our board to help us with keeping minutes and like that. And just wish her the best, and again acknowledge what she did for us while she was here. We also had a lot of discussion about where we might meet in the future when that opportunity becomes available. And I would ask that if any of you has a contact or whatever with a place that is available for up to 50 people with parking and those kinds of things to be able to accommodate our group, I'd sure love to know. We have a couple of places that we're looking at, but it's always nice to know if somebody has an inn somewhere. We also are looking at the business of prints and not prints, and what is our future around that. And we will be doing some surveys, as we did in the past, to determine what you as a group want, because really the whole thing is about what you want, and we'll do what we can to make that happen. I know if we went the route of not having prints, I would certainly want to set up a subgroup within our group to be able to work together with those of us who do really see the print in the old school kind of way as being the outcome of a photograph, and being what a photograph is. And I can understand that the world changes, and the world has changed, and it will continue to change. And in the meantime, I like my prints. Let's see. That's about it that I have as far as things having to do with the board. We are continuing to do the Adobe Users Group, where we'll be meeting next Thursday. And that's an opportunity for those of you who don't know to build your skills, to share your ideas, to share your thoughts, and to hopefully get questions answered, learn new techniques, that kind of thing. We have anywhere from 4 people to 12, depending upon the night, and it works out very well for everybody. And we have the photography basics group that meets the first Thursday of each month, and it's become both an opportunity to ask questions and learn new skills, and it's also because it's the week before we have to turn in our images. It's an opportunity to get feedback from your peers about what's working and what's not. Is this on topic? Is it not on topic? Those kinds of things become available to you, and it is really helpful. I can tell you from my experience that it has really helped me a lot to decide which images may or may not be the best, even though I think they might be the best. No more ums. I think what I'm going to do is to turn this meeting over to Mr. Katz, and let's get it going.
Okie dokie. Well, I think Hutch has left the building, but he'll be back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could I ask Lloyd a question? Are we permanently not going to be able to go back to the village at any time, or is it just too long a time?
The answer to that is that we are not going back to the village. The village remains concerned about the possible impact of outside people coming in, whether COVID is gone or not. There's still a lot of things going on, and possibly even more pragmatic, the parking issue there is something that was a bit of a problem at times for them. So it's not in our future.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to welcome back Hutch as our judge again. Thank you so much for joining us. Frankly, I learned a heck of a lot last time around, and I'm looking forward to this month's judging. Probably one of the more challenging assignments that we've had. Real quickly, we had, I think, about 42 entries. It's one of the largest groups of entries that we've had, submissions in a long time. So there's a lot to go through, and there's some really amazing pictures there, and it really was a challenge. Just real quickly, by way of introducing Hutch, he, of course, has been a longtime judge with fStops, but he also judges for quite a number of camera clubs, and as he mentioned, judges internationally. He started at an early age with his father's camera in darkroom, and continued to move through film cameras in the 80s and then the digital in the 90s, and photographs purely for the love of photography. And if you want to look at his website, it's digitaldaydreaming.com. And Hutch, we're thrilled to have you with us, and we're going to turn this over to you. I'm going to mute everybody. Hutch, I'll unmute you or unmute yourself. And again, as I just asked, that everybody hold even your chat till the end, and then after the judging, we'll open it up and we can share questions and thoughts, etc. So, Hutch, it is all yours. Give me 1 second just to mute everybody and then put you back on.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me back. It's really a privilege, and I'm flattered that you would have me. You've got some amazing judges that judge for you, so to be a part of them is pretty nice. It's as I say, I'm flattered to.
Hutch, sound.
Oh, I thought, oh, I'm sorry. Basically, I was saying, thanks for having me, guys. I always enjoy fStop. You guys are a great group, great photography, and it's always nice being with you. So I'm flattered to once again be with you. Just a quick note before I begin tonight. After looking at all of the images, I got to go back and say, abstract photography, my first thought after looking at them was, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? Um, Abstract, as I said last month, is really ambiguous and it's tough to put your arms around. Um, it's not necessarily about making the subject matter just unrecognizable. It's about reducing to a point where there's no longer an object or a scene, but the qualities found in the basic elements of art still predominate. Um, and that can be, abstracts can really be so much in the eye of the viewer. So as I go through them tonight, I always say I welcome folks disagreeing with me as a judge. If all of us agreed, there would be no reason for us to judge. We could just have it done by a machine and artificial intelligence, and maybe that's in the future. I don't know, but it's our different viewpoints, I think, that we learn from. With abstracts, I think I may have more of you that disagree with me. In fact, as I was going through them today, I was disagreeing with myself. And I found myself being contradictory when I was being critical of one image and loving another image and saying, well, gosh, why was I critical of that one if I love that one? Because basically they both are following the same principles. So a lot of it is really personal impact, and impact, of course, in photography and art is a big thing. And the Professional Photographers of America, when you go through the judge training there, impact is emphasized to be the number one most important element that the judge is to consider. So when you think about that and you think about abstracts, then it can vary pretty widely. So keep that in mind. Feel free to disagree with me. Feel free to say I'm nuts, and let's take it away and begin with the first image then. And I will share the screen. And the topic, of course, was abstracts that are of the hand of man or man-made objects. So I kind of got a kick out of this first image that is the hand of man, literally. I thought that was pretty clever and a pretty clever take on the assignment. In the image itself, I think is clever. I think that technically there are probably some issues with it that might have been done better. You notice the jagged edges around the hand that has been obviously selected and cut out so that it can be duplicated. And I really like that creativity of the repeating pattern, which is one of the elements of art, and well used here. But again, there's some technical issues going on with the cutout of the hand. There's this area up here in the last hand that I'm not quite sure what that's all about. So overall, I love the concept, and I like the idea and the effort. But I'm going to give this image a 7, mainly because of the technical issues that I see. And by the way, there is the size. Can you guys see the difference? When you say that Zoom is showing you the same image, showing you the correct size, that is the size that was submitted. So this image has been stretched up by Lightroom to fill the screen. Next image is I really enjoy. It is not only abstract, it is minimalism, which I am fascinated with, that I'm not much good at, but I enjoy seeing minimalized images, and I really think that studying minimalism will help all of your photography boil things down to what's important. And so in this image, what you have is a abstract graphic of what is a man-made object. And at first I wasn't quite sure. I thought so because I can kind of see some stuff in the background. So I kind of raised up the exposure here a little bit to see what I could see, just to prove it to myself. And come on, you can see that this photographer actually made this image from something that is man-made. The other thing that I noted on this that I really appreciate is diagonals and triangles are really, really powerful in the elements and principles of design. And I appreciate the fact that the photographer took the trouble to make sure that neither one of these diagonals led directly into the corner. Typically, when you lead a diagonal right into the corner, you tend to lead the eye right out of the object. I also kind of like the fact that he left just enough here so you can see that little crack there, which I think adds to it. So I'm going to give this image an 8. I thought this was fun. I think, is one of those lamps, and I think that the maker did a good job of seeing all the geometry and the interesting stuff that's in that lampshade or ball that I believe surrounds the lamp. I'm kind of wondering a little bit whether or not the vignette around it. I understand vignetting and drawing your eye into the middle, but the white object, which I presume is a light bulb or something like that, is so prominent that I'm not sure that it's necessary, and I'm not sure that maybe my eye is being drawn to these dark corners. Corners are powerful portions of an image, and you can kind of see here you've got almost a blacked out corner here, and you've got a blacked out corner there, and those two things are kind of ping-ponging my eye back and forth. So I kind of wondered whether, if the maker had maybe cropped in or not vignetted quite so much, this might have been a little bit stronger. So I'm going to give this a 7. J. Ross, obviously, congratulations on a nice image. I looked at this and I thought it's a documentary image of someone else's art, which brings to mind several things. I mean, it's done well as a documentary image, it's exposed correctly. I think that if I was doing it just as a documentary image, I'd probably try to crop down a little bit and maybe tone down the background a little so you don't have so much kind of messy distraction around it. But in terms of the assignment, what I was pondering was, did the maker presume that or see this as an abstract piece of art that somebody else created and was showing us that, or was the maker trying to create an abstract image? I don't see this as an abstract image, and I think that's what the assignment was all about, was creating your own abstract. So regardless of whether you would consider that somebody else's abstract, and I think when you take an image of somebody else's art, you really need to make new art out of it. So I'm going to give this a 6. Spend a lot of time on this image, trying to figure out why I love it and hate it both. It's got a number of elements of art, and that should make an abstract pretty good. It's got line, it's got shape and form, it's got a repeating pattern. It's got a lot of kind of cool stuff going on with it, and at least for me, it's disturbing. Well, and maybe that with an abstract can be a good thing. So I've got to decide, why is it kind of disturbing to me? What I'm seeing in this fuzzy abstract part of my brain is 3 eyeballs on a monster with a whole row of chrome teeth, and you guys may in your brain see something different. I don't know, but I'm struggling a little bit with it. I'm not sure what to do with this negative space up here. I don't know whether maybe it ought to be cropped a little bit tighter. I'm just not sure, and it's just not. Again, this is one of those impact things that kind of a yin and yang, lots of impact, but at the end of the day, not hitting me that particularly that well. So maybe some of it is just very sharp right there, out of focus there. Just a number of things. So I give this a 7. Um, this has got some really cool things to it. I think it, as an abstract, you wonder, is this broken pane of glass, or what's going on that has made this just great, wonderful pattern here? And it would have made, I think, even a better maybe black and white down here. And then what are the orange balls up here? So, you have a lot of curiosity going on. The thing I kind of struggled with on this is that with abstracts, some of the basic principles and don't go away when it comes to composition. And what I'm feeling here maybe is that there are 2 images. One of the things I was hoping that some of you folks would realize, you, probably hear it from a lot of the judges, is very often there are 2 or 3 better images within an image than the image as a whole. And I kind of got that feeling with this is as an abstract, with just a crop around these eyeballs with some of that kind of interesting stuff in the back, then, more interesting by itself. Is the image balanced well? You've got really a lot of symmetry going on here in this bottom portion, and then all of a sudden that's broken and the balance is broken by these balls up here. My eye travels from here up to there, back to here, and I'm not quite sure where to land. So, one of the things I look at with abstracts is I often say, with an abstract, you don't necessarily have a point of interest because the image itself can be in totality, can be the point of interest. But that kind of gets broken here because I've really got 2 points of interest in this image. These up here and this down here. So I think there's some really good things going on in it, but I think it could be better. So I've given this a 7. This image kind of grew on me. I went through all of these about 5 or 6 times, and the first time I saw it, I really thought, I think sometimes abstracts in particular, the more you look at them, the more you kind of tend to either like them more or not like them as much. And initially, I wasn't that fond of this. The more I looked at it, is you've got really these extraordinary, I guess, light beams coming out in blue, surrounded by all of this orange, which is a complementary color, of course, to blue. So you've really got some powerful color stuff going on here, and your eye is being drawn down into the center of the image, which is, nicely offset a little bit here. So again, I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure it matters. Actually, with a lot of these, what I do is just kind of lean back and look at them from a distance, and when I do that, then again, the image as a whole kind of becomes that point of interest, and I like it. It's an 8. I was really struck by this image. The red is just really powerful, and I kind of wondered what, from the point of view to me, confused me at first. If the wheels hadn't been on the bottom of the image, I might have remained confused. I think the maker's choice of converting that to red was really a good choice because it just made it very powerful. I think also that the maker probably brought down the blacks, and so you've got a very, very strong figure to ground relationship here. where that basket just really pops out at you. I love the fact that the baker did not see fit or find it necessary to include the entire basket. Just bring it down to the really important parts that are all about the lines and the shapes, and again, that contrast against the background. I also appreciate all of the nitty gritty, kind of grubby stuff in the background. I thought that was really cool. And there's a symmetry to it that works very, very well. So, it is one of those subjects that deserves to be centered and be symmetrical. So I gave this a 9. Another image that I kind of spent a long time looking at, I think it meets all of the definitions and the criteria that I set forth, which is why I struggled a little bit with it. Because if I say to myself, gosh, I asked you guys to do this, you did this, and now I'm not that fond of it, I struggle with that. So I think the maker here saw something pretty interesting. I think that they really did a good job of tackling the assignment. I, the more I look at this, the more I think, look at the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. You got all of these kind of neat little combinations of things. The image is divided by the rule of thirds. There's the background there, and the middle ground, and the foreground. Just a lot of good stuff. I suspect I might have been more fond of it if it hadn't had the pin cushioning going on. If it had just been straightened, which could have been done in post or done in the camera, and the more I thought about that, the more I thought, well, maybe the maker intentionally did a little pin cushioning on it, or maybe that's the way the wall is and they wanted to portray it that way. So again, this is one of those abstracts that I'm, could probably have several different viewpoints. Nice presentation, by the way, with a thin black border that holds it together. So it met the assignment, but I'm struggling a little bit, so I'm kind of bounced back and forth. I'm going to give it an 8 because I just believe that there's a lot of effort that went into meeting the assignment. I love this. And one of the reasons I love it is because I didn't even realize what it was until I took the time to travel my eye around it, which it encouraged me to do. The concept is great with the spoons and the reflection of the windows, and the distortion is really cool. I think the only thing that I kind of wish was that this area here, and this probably could be debatable amongst us, I kind of wish this spoon had been moved so that this reflection and this reflection both were more whole and kind of co-joined, so to speak, without the distraction of this going up. And I would have thought that might have been fairly easy to do by moving. Well, if you moved the camera, you might have lost the reflections. I'm not sure. But that was about the only thing that bothered me a little bit there. And then you got kind of a tonality thing going on over on this side that I think all blacked out might have been better. But there's the size of the image, by the way. And there it is shrunken down to give you an idea of what happens with these different sizes. So I gave this an 8. Dynamite. Just love this image. This is really man-made object, abstract in my mind, where it didn't have to go over the edge with wild stuff. When it comes to basic principles of art and design, I just went down the list, and I says, my gosh, The elements of art, line. And there are lines that draw you right. Those diagonal lines are just so powerful. Shapes, the shape of the I don't even sure what you call them, and the little white goodies are really cool. Form, um, size, space, color, value, and texture. All of it is there. I just love the repeating patterns. You look at, you got the repeating patterns of the wires here, the repeating patterns of the wires there, a little bit different sizes, repeating patterns of all of the, I don't know what you call them, doesn't matter. It just, everything about it, I absolutely love, and it's just so well exposed. There's detail in the whites. The blacks there's detail in them. You could not have a better exposure. And I love the fact that instead of just shooting it straight on, the photographer took this and put it on such a nice diagonal. So you've really got two diagonals going on this. They're crossing. You got the diagonals of the chords going that way, and you got this really powerful diagonal going that way. Really strong. That's a 10. I thought this was pretty cool. The texture, color, and a little bit of kind of what I thought was humor, with a couple of eyeballs, a little mouth, and a head hanging out here. So it's got a little bit of creativity. It's got a lot of color. It's got shapes. It's got form. Just a ton of stuff going on. The one nit that I would have is I just wish it was in focus, or completely thrown out of focus, one way or the other. As it is, it's kind of half and half. It's really not. It's just soft, and I wish all of this crusty, rusty stuff was a little bit sharper. So I give this an A for effort, and wish that it had been again a little bit sharper, and I gave it an 8. I love this, but I was a little bit curious about the maker's intent. I mean, the colors are just great, and love all this crusty stuff. I think I know kind of what it is, but I'm not sure, which is even better for an abstract. I'm a little curious about the offset, and I've got to presume that was done intentionally. With it centered, you would have had a really nice symmetrical image. Really some pretty cool symmetry going on. And I thought, well, maybe, and then I thought, what happens with all this negative space down there if I reduce that a little bit and just focus on the top of the image? Maybe then then that works. I don't know. Again, this is one of the images I kind of suspected we could all discuss and debate. There's just so much I like about it, but I'm a little bit. The black just draws my eye. Where I want to go is right up in here, but my eye just keeps getting taken down to this corner, and I have a hard time getting away from it. So, again, I'm sure this one could be discussed thoroughly, but just because I'm having trouble going down there, I'm going to give it an 8. Love this. This is again what I look at as minimalism really done well. These soft muted color, this color here, and they're so different, but it's this contrast of texture between one and the other. and I love the way it's divided into thirds by this line. Just really, really cool. You know, the more I lean back and look at it, there is certainly an intersecting kind of point of interest, if you want to call it that. But I lean back and look, and my eye just takes in the whole thing in totality, and it just feels good and looks good, and I think it just hit the topic right on the nose. So I gave this a 10. I love the concept on this, and I kind of love the muted colors on it. What I'm struggling with on this image is this area here is so large and it's so soft, and it really is difficult to pull out foregrounds that are out of focus and that are big. Big draws your eye, out of focus draws your eye, and light draws your eye. And while you've got pretty strong light within this area, this just really, I'm having a really hard time getting down to the meat of what this is all about. So I did play a little bit with this and just kind of crop down into like that. And then I thought, that's kind of cool. So I think the maker had something going here, but I think really it needed either a crop or some way of keeping the eye moving into what I think that the maker wanted me to look at. So this is a 7. Really enjoyed this image. You know, we know what it is. We knew it was a car. We knew it from the headlight. But look at all the really cool blue and yellow, great color combination. All of these just gorgeous streaks and patterns. And then such a kicker is the Avanti, with I'm sure some graphic artist probably got a bonus for coming up with the arrow representing movement. And so you start off with the large headlight and surrounded by all the neat patterns and textures and what have you, and you kind of move down, and the Avanti just keeps you traveling right through, and it breaks a rule and that it really is sending you out of the image. But you know, I just think that it works under this circumstance and in this image. So you know, it's telling me about movement, and it's at least being kind of blocked. You know, it's moving, and then I stop because of this placement of this black spot here. So my eye is really not allowed to travel out. I was kind of wondering back. Actually, I just noticed that and kind of wondering why I didn't just keep going right on out, but I'm being stopped by that right there. And I hope that was the maker's intent. If not, don't tell me. But I really think it's cool. So I gave this a 10. Really enjoyed this. The red is so powerful, and I really like the line coming through it. Beautiful, beautiful light. I have kind of a wish list that this wasn't here, and that probably would have been fairly easy to take out and post. I'm kind of wishing this little white stuff down here really draws my eye down into that area, and I'm kind of wishing that was gone. And then there's this light here, which again, all of these three things are just such powerful attractions to the eye that it's kind of taken me away from some of the kind of neat stuff up here, which is really what it's all about. Excuse me. Just as a kind of a point of interest too, there's the original that's set in. I'm going to go up even a little bigger. If you were in a PPC competition, the judge would be killing you in this one for these little dust spots. They would be going absolutely mad on you. And this stuff along here, these little scrapes along here, they're just, if this was all gone, those are still distractions, and that's just for fun. Maybe take it down just a little bit. That's stronger. Just forget about this little stuff here. But then bing, 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 bing. Dan Holmes, who I think judges for you, Dan's my buddy, and we talk a lot about doing a little bit of gardening in landscapes. And we were judging or critiquing images together a couple of weeks ago, and I said, "You need to do some of Dan Holmes' gardening." And the audience said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, Dan's always talking about getting little dust spots and stuff off the leaves of trees and what have you, and or flowers." And I said, "Same thing goes with man-made objects and what have you. It's real easy to plunk those things off." Now, I just think this crop without some of this stuff distracting is a stronger one. So I say kudos to the maker, because the red's powerful. These lines are really powerful. It really is a nice abstract, but just too many distractions, so I'm giving it a 7. This is one of those, it grew on me. When I first saw it, I thought, ugh. And, it's interesting. I've looked at this image so much without recognizing what it is, and I just figured out what it is for the first time. And now I think it's even more cool than I was thinking before. Initially, I didn't like it at all, and now I'm kind of liking it even more. And what we're looking at, for those of you that haven't figured it out, I believe, is we're looking straight down into a champagne glass. And you've got the bubbles coming up, the champagne, there's the rim of the glass. I guess it's a kind of a high contrast image, because part of me said, you got all this stuff where the whites are just completely blown out, and I don't know maybe if I brought it down and brought the shadows up, maybe it's the exposure up a little bit. Maybe the highlights were a little bit bright, but overall, pretty darn good job, I think. And I think it really is a good job of fitting the assignment and what I was looking for. When you've got a part of a real object, and I got to struggle to figure out what it is, that's a cool abstract, especially when there's that moment of enlightenment. So I'm going to give this a 9. Really enjoy this image. It's just, so hard to photograph something like this without blowing the highlights out and having all kinds of problems. So from an exposure standpoint, from a depth of field standpoint, it's really beautiful. The colors are beautiful. And I think the maker did a good job of trying to meet the essence of the assignment. My only kind of wish on this was that this area here is really kind of pulling me away, and and maybe this area here, and there are really pretty easy ways of pulling that down. This here, you got all these bright spots around it that are rightfully out of focus, but a little bit of distractions. This little part over here, all of those things I think could have been brought down. If nothing else, maybe cropping in a little bit tighter so that you eliminate some of that, I think might have made the image a little bit better, maybe even a little bit tighter. There's several ways I kind of played with this earlier this afternoon, and felt like my eye was brought in when I leaned back. The old lean back, when I lean back right with the crop, then I'm really kind of enjoying it. I could still bring this down a little bit. I could probably just take that out. When I lean back without the crop, my eye just keeps wanting to fly up into that corner. So good job congratulations on working on meeting the assignment. I think you did a great job of that. And again, I love the exposure and everything else. I gave this an 8. Okay, reset and let's move. Doesn't want to move. Why am I not moving? What am I doing? I'm doing something that I'm still there. Now it'll go. Oh gosh, did I ever? This just struck me like thunder when I looked at it. Really enjoyed the concept a lot. I love that shadow running through the ring the way it does, and I'm kind of wondering what it's about. So really enjoyed this. Couple things that I think might have made it a little bit stronger for me. One of them is I did this, and again, some might disagree with it, but I look at the strong figure to ground relationship of that shadow to the background, and there's some details in the white there that I think brought out are interesting. Instead of just flat bringing out the exposure, I think that's, for me, a stronger image. And one that anybody would like to discuss it, I'd be more than happy to do that. The other thing on my wish list kind of was, and maybe there was not the space in the image to do it, but I'd kind of like to have the echo of what obviously is the ring there with the ring here, and either have this all the way in, or maybe I played a little bit with all the way out. And I think we could probably debate till the cows come home, which is better, again, because it is an abstract. But I really like what the maker saw, and I think it's a cool image, and I gave it an 8. Okay, go away. Really had fun with this. You know, the placement here, if you're a lover of the rule of thirds, which, you know, some of us say is we shouldn't follow, and some of us say we should, and I'm one of those that's kind of a believer that you better like the basics before you start breaking the rules, and understand why they're being used and why they're not. So I think the placement on this was really, really good. I kind of did this just like with the last object. I don't think that this is doing it any favors. I'm kind of finding it a little bit distracting. So I just brought it down. And again, some folks may agree or disagree with that. Maybe they like the texture in it as an abstract. I got to this point, and then I thought, well, kind of what happens, because a lot of this is kind of out of focus and what have you, but you got some light beams going through here, and I didn't really notice them. I didn't really notice them when it was like this, because everything is kind of soft and out of focus to begin with. As I brought up the whites, they kind of, in my mind, became a little more prominent, and that greater contrast just made the image look sharper and more interesting to me. So my interpretation, different than what the maker's is, and it's okay to disagree with me. I like the image either way. I think mine's better, but it's your image. So anyway, I gave it an 8. Love this. Um, just so well seen and so real but so abstract. I just think it is a great image. It takes you a minute, or at least it took me a little bit of a minute to figure it out. What are these big diagonals here? Well, of course, they're another office building, and this is the glass on that other office building. One of the remarkable things to me that I think was either very intentionally done in post or very intentionally done in camera, which I think really helps make this work, is here you got these really neat diagonals, these really great verticals, and you got these lines in the office building itself and these diagonals, and they are perfectly perpendicular with the lines in the reflection. Absolutely perfectly. So again, whether that was in post or whether it was in camera, good job on the part of the maker. And then after doing that, you still, which makes me think that there was some thought process in camera, because you couldn't have done this in post. Um, these diagonals are just almost at a perfect 45-degree angle, and to have them at a 45 and everything else vertically so straight and do it in post would have been almost impossible. You would have either warped them both or neither. So really great, and the color and tonality is just absolutely beautiful. So congratulations on just, I think, a great abstract of man-made objects, which is what I was really looking for. I think this one hit the nail on the head and obviously gets a 10. Kudos to the maker for something really fun. I kind of had to smile when I saw this wall plug face that was staring at me, going, "Ooh, it's a ghost," or it's a whatever kind of hit you. So I think it's a fun image. I think it was creative and meets the assignment. I wish it was not so soft. There's the size of it originally, and so it's not just a matter of it's being brought up from being small. It's larger being brought down, which actually increases the sense of it being sharp. So anyway, I gave this a 7. I'm assuming this is the same person that did the lampshade earlier, and I could be wrong. I think the abstract is here. It's really cool. The border of the abstract, I'm not sure why we need that. There's the original size of this image, by the way. And I wanted to play with kind of cropping this down, but it's a small image. Excuse me. So I'm looking at this and I'm trying to think of what's going on in the creator's mind doing this, and I'm presuming they kind of felt like a border made out of the main subject would help it. Frankly, I'm of the opposite sense. I think it keeps, you get a light border of a repeating pattern like this. It's very strong. Your point of interest is right here, and you're continuing to pull your eye out to the edge of the image. So in a sense, I think it was counterproductive. And I gave this a 7. This is another one I went back to, and I really did not like it all when I first looked at it, and it just kept growing on me as I looked at it. Compositionally, there are some really great things going on in this image. You got these neat S-curve, dual S-curve leading lines going up to the engine with the light on up here. Pretty cool. There's the size of the image, by the way. Now you can see what's happening to some of it is very soft. And now I bring it up and it really pronounces that. So I'm not sure whether the maker really intended that or not. The thing I kind of struggled with was whether this color, which is so kind of neon powerful, doesn't clash with this color in here. And maybe there was some intention on that. I mean, got the leading lines leading here. You got this arch that creates a window to look in. You got another arch that frames and brings your eye in so nicely. You've got another arch back here. So you get this repeating pattern of windows that really lead you into the image and give a three-dimensional effect to it, which I think is pretty cool. I guess it becomes abstract by the nature, or some of the abstract part of it becomes that color clash, I guess, and that really is going to be, I suspect, really, really cool on the part of some and really awful on the part of others. This is where, again, abstracts can mean different things to different people. And I'm not sure the train's a little bit soft focus up here, whether that's, obviously in the original image before some of this creative post was being done, you had sharp foreground depth of field fading out into the back. And I don't know. So there's a yin and a yang to this. I'm giving it I'm giving it a 7.5 because I want to give it an 8, but I'm still kind of, my brain is fighting with it. So call it a 7. Verticals are so strong. They're leading you up to heaven, and this one is strong, but it's not particularly leading me, and I couldn't quite figure out exactly why. It just seems to me I'm kind of going up, but I'm coming to a dead stop. And the colors are really pretty cool and strong, but I'm losing it a little bit because of the soft focus. There's the original image, by the way. That's the size that was submitted. And you can kind of see what's going on there. So as I shrink it down, that becomes less obvious than when I was looking at this earlier in Photoshop. Again, it's the impact and how it hits you. I think that is the important thing, and this one's not working for me as well as it might have for the maker, so I'm giving this a 7. I think this is the image we saw earlier from a different angle, and one of the really cool things about this, I'm going to crop it for just a second and see what happens to your eyes on it. Are you looking down into the glass, or are you looking up out of the glass? There's an optical illusion going on there. You could very easily be looking down into the glass, or you could very easily be looking up out of the glass. Obviously, from the camera angle, once you realize what it is, you're looking up out of the glass. But if you just kind of hold your hand over the bottom, you can get that impression you're looking down. So pretty cool optical illusion. This is really, really well done in my mind, and I love, actually, in this one, I think there was a better job of holding the highlights than there was in the previous one. So I kind of go back and forth between the two, and it being abstract, maybe the highlights being held are not all that important. And the question in my mind on this one is this really abstract, or is it documenting a good documentary shot of a champagne glass? That's the only real issue in my mind, is how strongly it met the assignment. I think it's a good job of documenting the champagne glass. I love the background. exposure is pretty darn good considering that shiny object. So overall, I'm going to give it an 8, and it might have been stronger had I felt that it met the assignment a little bit better. Really like this image. It just all kinds of angles, triangles, lines, verticals, horizontal. I mean, you name it. This is a person's line dream come true. Really well seen. Love the perspective from the photographer got down and shot straight up and looked at it that way. And again, this may be a preference thing, and I can certainly appreciate it. I looked at this and that gray, I can see half of me says that's really cool. The other half of me says, what happens if I do that? And make this really high key, because this is not low key, and it's kind of mid key, drab, but that may be purely personal on my part. I like this kind of high key, super contrasty, figure to ground look. But as I did this and I looked at it from a standpoint of my personal preference, I said, well, maybe the maker intentionally liked it that way. I kind of have a feeling, and I could be wrong, and the maker can tell me afterwards, that this started out and that what you're seeing as the gray there is a blue sky. And as a lot of you that convert to black and white know, that when you do a conversion and there's a blue sky, it often turns, pure blue sky, it often turns to a very flat gray. And part of what's making me believe that that's going on is you have got a graduation from here over to here, where it goes from a little shade darker to a little shade lighter on this side, which would be something that would naturally occur in a sky. That being said, I really enjoy the image, and I think that it meets the assignment really, really well, so I gave it a 9. Love the color, love the seeing that little part is just really cool. I'm not feeling, well, it's a smaller part of a larger man-made object. I'm still not feeling like it's that abstract. I'm almost feeling like it's a documentary shot of a whatever. And I think that's probably something that may be in the eye of the beholder. You know, some of you may say, oh, that's really abstract. That's really, I just don't know what the whole thing is. He zoomed in really well. So I can understand both sides of that. I would suggest, when you have something like this here, either leave it in or take it out. This is an eye trap, what they call an eye trap. So what I want to do is I want to travel around the image. These are, it's a river of, there's the size that was submitted. Your eye flows like a river around the image, and it gets over to this area here, and my eye is trapped. It cannot continue. It cannot follow on down and around. So when you've got an object that's tangent like this, that's barely out like that, leave space for the eye to continue around the subject. On this one, it's kind of, I love the color, I love the thought, but I'm just having trouble finding it that strong in terms of meeting the assignment, so I'm going to call it a 7. Again, technically, great job, great focus, love all the bits and pieces. So exposure is just absolutely super, and congrats on the maker for all of that and moving on. And this is where I got to debating myself, because I said to the previous one, well, you know, I know what it is. It isn't abstract enough. And then I get to this one and I say, oh, I love this. But I know exactly what it is. What's the difference that makes it more abstract? I'm saying to myself, what's the abstract part of this? And it's just the abstract part of it is that it just uh, taking the heart so out of its environment and so, you know, just the little pieces. Look at the shapes in this heart shape here, repeating pattern of the heart, the repeating pattern of these round pieces here, and the repeating patterns there. If this image had been placed on a horizontal, I don't think it would have worked nearly as well. But the maker did a great job of putting this in the diagonal. And so what I have here is I've got a couple of arrows that are just pointing up to the sky, really strong. So, and you know, all this neat patterns and stuff around it. I just really, really enjoyed this image. Nice job technically in terms of keeping all the highlights and shadows so nicely balanced. So this is a 9. This again is one of these lean back images, and I really enjoy these all of these diagonals and these arrows, so to speak, that are taking me right down into the center of the image. My eye has to go down into this image just because of all of these. It's really very powerful. This image would have been much stronger for me. I mean, I love the concept. I love the colors. I love the lines. All of that stuff I really like. What took me away from it was I've got areas of it that are really sharp and in focus, like right there. And then I've got areas that are really out of focus, like down here. And this is a symmetrical image. So almost if this had been taken over into a third here, and then you had all of this sharp and you had these kind of fading out, I think it might have worked a little bit better. The other part of this that kind of got to me is, you know, kind of nitpicking, but these white places up here, my eye kind of goes up to, and that is kind of a nitpick. But mainly it's the sharpness and the out of focus portions with a symmetrical image that almost creates an out of balance feel for me. This side, you know, you got symmetry like this, it's really almost all sharp on this side, and it should be on the other. What the maker might have done to make this work would have been to slice this image and then flip this and put the sharp image over on this other side, creating a mirror of both sides of the image. Just one thought. So a 7. So cool. And putting this into this, I don't know, is it chartreuse or purple or whatever it is. Love this concentric rings. I don't know. Well, I think I kind of have an idea what it is, but I really don't. So that, you know, does help make it abstract. The only real nitpick I have on this is this little odd piece right here. And I don't know, you know, that could be taken out. And it's just kind of weird because my eye's just traveling around. It comes there and just goes, whoops. And you talk about an eye trap. See, you come in there, you can't get past that. If you're following this loop around, you just kind of stop right there. If you're following up here, your eye just kind of stops right there. But overall, really neat image. I think great concept of turning what I presume is the sky purple. So I gave this a 9. Kind of a classic Getty Museum shot that I think we've all that have been to the Getty have probably taken. And the reason we have is because it is a pretty cool abstract unto itself. So thank you for bringing us back to an image that probably a lot of us recognize. To further turn this into an abstraction, I really would have loved to have seen this gone, because this is a message to me that this is a building, and I really don't need that here. I did just a couple of things on this. First off, I just did a little transform on it to bring it up straight, and then I just took it and cropped down in here, and now I think, at least for me, that's much more abstract standing on its own than what this was. You don't need this here, and you don't need this down here taking your eye away from what your subject is. So I'm being pulled out by this because it's so incongruous with what this is all about. So the summary, good eye, good understanding of what I was looking for. You really hit the nail on the head in terms of meeting the assignment of seeing a man-made abstract. I just think the presentation and the composition could be done a little better, so I'm giving it a 7. I love this, and I'm prejudiced because I know who took this, and he's one of my buddies that I love to death, and I'd actually seen it before, I must confess, but I absolutely, in the sense of being an abstract, I just think this is terrific. You know, I think most of us kind of can guess what this is or have a presumption of what it is, but I'm not sure that we're all sure, which is part of that whole thing. You know, you've got this neat diminishing repeating pattern here being echoed by this really cool figure to ground S curve that's just winding around. I mean, you know, it's perfect S's. There's an S. Your eye goes around and leads you right into another S. It leads you around into another S. And, you know, you've got this diagonal line here and this diagonal line there that are helping to make the image strong. So there's just so many things about this that are working that it's unreal. I wish my buddy had taken a moment to get rid of this. That I am finding is an eye trap that just has kind of taken me away from all of the other really, really cool stuff here. The other thing I did that this may be, again, arguable, but I took the blacks just down a little bit more to accentuate the figure to ground element here. You can see I've pretty much kept most of the detail. In fact, if I just lifted the shadow slightly, I'm going to keep all the details there. But this just becomes very powerful in here. And where is it leading me to? This is, by the way, this is an implied connection here. Implied connections are really pretty cool. Your eye's traveling around here, you know that that's connected. It just keeps on going and it keeps on following, even though it's outside of the image. I guess really to nitpick, nudging this up in the corner, it's just a real nitpick. I kind of wished maybe there was a little bit more, wasn't hitting the corner exactly right in the corner, but that's on a scale of nitpicking, that's about a 9.9. So I am really, uh, I'm at 9.5 just because of this. I'm going to go to a 9 to be perfectly fair with my really good friend Roy and be honorable with everybody, because that is kind of bothering me. Take that out, Roy, and look at all that cool stuff on the pavement. That's just neat stuff. Great image. Next image. Pretty darn good job. Chrome is so hard to shoot, mainly because of exactly what's happening here. You really lose the highlights, and I don't know. You know, they're pretty much gone in this. When you shoot something like this that's chrome, take your EV down, maybe a stop or so, and then bring things up in post, rather than letting it go, because you can't recover. Once it's gone, you just cannot recover it. So today you don't worry too much about noise in the shadows. So expose for your highlights in an image like this. If you got a spot meter, or I'm loving my new mirrorless camera where I can actually see this happening in the viewfinder, but bring it down so that you can keep that detail. I looked at this image from a standpoint of the assignment, and I kind of know what this is. There's not much left to my imagination, so I'm just not sure how abstract it's become. What I was really having fun with is I'm kind of looking at this interesting stuff in here, and I'm looking at this stuff down here, and I'm thinking, Mr. Maker, maybe if you had focused on the fender and all of this neat stuff, or maybe focused up here on these reflections, we would have had a much more of an abstract than what we have. So I think it's a cool image. I always love this. In fact, I think I know the car, and I think I've shot the car. It's pretty cool, but watch your exposure, and when you're doing abstracts, look around and see if you can't find something that's a little more outside the box the next time. I'm going to give this a 7. Pretty wild image, pretty wild motorcycle. And I know it's a motorcycle. And I'm looking at this in terms of the abstract part of it, and the meat of this is dead center in it. Does this need to be here? Does this need to be here? Does that need to be there? Or is this image, in terms of it being an abstract, is that where it's at? And I think that's pretty darn cool. Part of the problem with this, you can see what the size of this original image was. So when I take it up and I crop it like that, I'm absolutely destroying what little there was of, you can see the pixelization just is getting absolutely terrible. So anyway, I think that you had something pretty cool going, just for your edification. There's the original size of the image, and there's the other side. So I think you were headed the right direction. And again, so often it's the image within the image, and they're probably, in terms of abstracts, I'll bet I could make 6 or 8 or 10 out of this. I mean, just working the Kickstarter there and surroundings is almost an abstract, and just working the carburetor and the heads there, it would be an abstract, or like I cropped just the whole insides of it. So you really had it going. I think what this is, the motorcycle itself, unto itself, is pretty abstract. It's pretty outside of the norm. So I'm looking at this as it stands more as you've documented the abstract motorcycle rather than created an abstraction yourself. So look down, get tight, and I'm giving this a 7. And why am I not moving? Oop. Okay, image move. Hand of man, right? And the maker sure got the hand of man. Uh, I like the out of the box creativity on this. I'm gonna get rid of that. I love the shadow on it. There's the size of the image that was submitted, so you can see what's happening to it. Is it really gets pretty fuzzy once it goes up to full size in here. I appreciate the concept and where the maker was going with it. I could have lived without this up here, but that's kind of a nitpick. I think it probably could have been a better job of bringing it into focus, but that may be because I'm exaggerated because I'm bringing it up to full size for the sake of this viewing. So this is a 7. There's what was submitted. And I just really like this image, but I mean, just compositionally, from a kind of a high key, medium key, so to speak, standpoint, it's really neat. I'm not quite sure what it is. I mean, I think I know what it is. I think it's a. I think this is a reflection over here, and these are railings of some sort, and kind of, which is kind of what I want with an abstract, isn't it? Make my mind figure it out. I really love this diagonal coming up through here, and these curves coming down and meeting right here, which is kind of over in a third of the image. All these nice lines here. Everything's kind of working for this, other than that kind of soft focus part of it that I'm struggling a little bit with the noise. And I'm just not sure whether that's because of the, oops, didn't mean to do that. I'm really not so sure whether it's because I'm bringing it up where I can really see it. I think this was one of the really small ones. Or whether that's, I think it's more the nature of the image. And it may have been taken with high ISO necessarily creating the noise, but nonetheless. So from a standpoint of meeting the assignment, I'm really giving this points from a compositional standpoint. I really like it, but from a technical standpoint, unfortunately, I'm really bringing it down in my mind to a 7. And you can see what happens is there we go back to big. Now we're very, very cool and well seen. Obviously man-made objects, but it's got me guessing exactly what this is, other than maybe it's a bottle house. I don't know. Obviously those things are stuck in clay or mud or something. I'm having a lot of fun looking at this image. I love the color. I love the repeating patterns. And the thing that I really like best about it is this little blue oddball right here. So I think this is well seen, and I think it really meets the assignment well. Just for fun, I'm kind of thinking, does this work a little better? I'm really having fun with it more than criticizing at this point, because this little blue thing, this oddball, is so powerful amongst the rest of the objects that I really think accentuating it helps. Whoops, come on, stop cropping, reset. Don't normally use Lightroom, so, but really, really good image. I gave this a 9. I must still, yeah, reset. This is what happens when I get away from camera raw. Come on. Okay, I'm gonna do it. Save time. Loved it. I'm not sure how abstract this is particularly. I guess it is. I just love the point of view is really, really cool. And I love particularly the point of focus is so strong on the letters here. Although I would have really liked it to be sharp up front and in focus strong all the way down to them, but you can't have everything. So I'm kind of going to overlook that. I think maybe to minimize, foreground, out of focus foregrounds are really hard to deal with or to make work well. And this has already been made a panorama as it is, but I thought, and I don't know whether this works or doesn't work. I thought maybe it doesn't really work that well. What I'm trying to do is just make the eye go to these areas that are so much more in focus, but I'm not liking what I just did. So much for that. Reset. Anyway, love the concept, love the point of view, and maybe not as strong in terms of being an abstract as some of the others, but I'm going to give it a 9 nonetheless. And I'm going to have to get out of, there we go. Again, this one conceptually in terms of the assignment, I really enjoyed. I think it's well seen. I love the crusty, junky stuff around it. And I know what it is, I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've got an idea what it is, but I'm not sure. So from an abstract standpoint, that's really working. What I'm struggling with a little bit is where you've got a frame around the image and then you vignette completely over that frame. I kind of have a little bit of a problem with. It's really gone dark. I think I understand what you're trying to achieve in terms of bringing my eye down to the point of interest, and I understand that, but I think that be careful with the vignettes that you don't overdo it, and when you do vignette, if you're going to use a frame, then keep the vignette inside of the frame, not over onto the border. I think this image did probably the frame would have worked well, but got to keep that vignette in there. The other thing on this image is I think it's just a really strong image from a standpoint of symmetry. You look at this and centering it. I think some of the judges scare the heck out of us about centering things. But when you've got a subject that is so strong in terms of symmetry, then be careful about trying too hard to move over off center. Or if you're going to move off the center, move up into a third. Don't with something like this. Don't just offset to the side. And then instead of just using a global vignette around the subject itself when it's over. If you move it up over into this area, use the elliptical up here and create that vignette around the center of interest. This is a 6. Yeah, I got to get rid of that. And the last image, and there's the size that was submitted. so you can see what's happening on a 27-inch monitor. I think you guys can. If I'm wrong at the end of this, I'll confess that in Zoom this doesn't happen, but I think you're seeing it happening, and you can see the pixelization that's really tearing this image apart, and you can see the problem I was having trying to judge this at such a tiny size without screwing it up. I really enjoyed this image a lot. I think it was really cool point of view, looking down on it like this. These arrows are really strong, really nice curves here, like all of the elements here that bringing you in. The technically, I'm struggling a little bit. Again, this is a case where you're shooting chrome underexposed, and then so you don't lose 100% of the detail. Although in this image, probably, you know, you want it bright, but I'm not so sure that you want it totally gone. The assignment, I'm about 80% that it meets the assignment really well, and about 20% that it's almost too much of a car. I don't know. 90%, I think it meets the assignment. 10% of it is making me struggle a little bit. I think the reason I'm, you know, it's a great graphic, and I love it's a great use of color. It takes somebody kind of knowing what they're doing to pull this off with the colors and what have you in this. And it obviously was not the color of the car, because it's you can see that it's been put into the chrome there. What I'm kind of looking at and wondering is, look at all the cool stuff in some of these reflections and what have you, and maybe whether there weren't more elements that could have been abstract. The other thing I'm kind of wondering about, and I've done this on some of my images, it's just an alternative. It's I think this really the symmetry of this. Just talking about symmetrical images, and this is where maybe I contradict myself, but I love taking stuff like this and putting it at a diagonal so that this is a strong diagonal here, but that's just an alternative, not necessarily an idea that might make it better. So I'm going to give this a 9. And that is the end of my judging. So I will stop sharing and hope that I went through here without encouraging anybody to start throwing rotten apples.
Well,
Tomatoes. I got the tomatoes.
Tomatoes.
thank you, Hutch. This is great. We have 4 images that got 10s. And after the meeting, Hutch, I'll send you those 4 and I'll let you go ahead and give us first, second, and third place. But congratulations to everybody. Beautiful pictures and fantastic commentary from you, Hutch. So thank you all very much.
What I'm most pleased about is that it was a tough assignment. It really was. And that everybody, I don't think there's a single image on there that everybody didn't really make an effort to meet the assignment. And I really appreciate that. One little suggestion for those of you that want to go back and look, one of the things I always suggest on assignments is to go to Google Images and Google the assignment. And I do that every time I'm entering an assigned subject. I Google the assignment first and go to Google Images. Go back and Google man-made objects abstracts and take a look at the images there and some of the creativity. And I suspect some of you will probably be kicking yourself in the butt with some of the ideas that are really simple, that are pretty fantastic. So anyway, just one other little suggestion. Sorry to interrupt, Dan.
No, that's great. So we'll go ahead, unmute yourselves for conversating. and please mute yourself if you're not, so that we don't get too much feedback. But again, let's throw it open to everybody for questions or comments. And again, this was a lot of fun.
I think you did a great job, Hutch. I on the Avanti one that you liked,
Mhm.
I spent an hour and a half taking the dust spots off of that in Photoshop. It was amazing. It was a black surface, and it had all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
And it took me literally an hour and a half. The same thing with that image of the shopping cart.
Mhm.
That was in Haskell Creek down there in Sepulveda Basin, and I've shot probably 30 shots of that. No, more than that, way more than that, 5 or 6 different times, trying to come up with um, what I wanted out of it. And what I was hoping to do was to give an image of something that was wonderful, made by man, hand of man,
Mhm.
and something that wasn't so wonderful and yet still was beautiful in its own way. And this assignment caused a lot of people to ask questions, and that's one of the best things about an assignment like this, is that people really had to think.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
The greatest lesson, I hope, is that you all look at your images and start looking and seeing if there's images within the image.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Oh, hi, George.
Hey,
This is Terry Mercer.
hi Terry.
Hi, and I just wanted to thank you for the last couple of weeks. Personally, I have really loved the care and the attention you've taken to every image that came under your gaze. I think you've been extremely good in covering the benefits of an image and the things that need help. And I especially loved the way that you came onto the computer with Lightroom and suggested modifications in real time. And I thought that was really very considerate and very, very helpful for a lot of the players. So I just want to thank you for the whole thing.
It's thank you, Terry. When people go to the effort to present an image, they deserve the thought process. And
Yeah.
well, I really grumble. We had an image, another club that I observed the judging on the other night. I know the judge was sent the images in advance, but didn't look at them and didn't take the time to do that. And I think that's a shame, because
Yeah. Yeah.
it's such a huge advantage to us of having them in advance versus getting
Right. Yeah.
sudden situation in the live judging. So there's some big benefits to this. And
Well, your love of the subject certainly shows through, George.
yeah. Well, I love you guys. You guys all do. It's always fun.
This is
Josh,
Hi.
So every party needs a pooper. I got a question or a comment. Hutch, I too,
Josh's turn right at the moment, and I'll continue to moderate. So it would be helpful if you could put your picture up and then put your hand up when you're ready to comment.
Thank you, Hutch. Just the photo of the shopping cart and the water.
Mhm.
I'm just curious, I'm thinking out loud. What if it was rotated 180 degrees? You think that would
Let me go back to
do
it.
that? Would you care to do that? And
Yeah, I should
do you
go
think
back.
it improves it? Doesn't improve it?
Um, I've got it up here. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can share. Um, oops, I shared, but I got to hang on one second. I shared the wrong one, the wrong version. Um,
Which shopping cart, Josh?
Yeah, this one. That's it. If you just rotate it 180 degrees, does that do anything?
um, you mean so that the hearts are pointed the other direction?
Yeah, so
Yeah, yes, it would do.
photo flip vertical.
I kind of think that typically when you have a leading line, which this is, those arrows are leading lines, those diagonals. Those diagonals taking you up and away rather than down take you into the image. And I think if you flip this, that you'd be feeling like you were crashing into the ground rather than taking off into the sky. But if I was in my usual work environment of, let's see, the transform, in Camera Raw, I could do it in 2 seconds. In Lightroom,
You would do photo, flip, vertical.
photo. You want to flip it vertical or horizontal?
Yeah, vertical. Trust me.
Photo flip vertical. Ah. No,
Just curious.
I think that's confusing. You got an upside down reflection. What I thought you were talking about was this photo. Was
No,
that?
no. The prior one I was wondering about. Okay.
Well, again, when as a group, I suspect that there probably would be any one of these images, all the way from the 6s to the 10s. I hope that there would be different visions of maybe which way they should go. So I don't think there's a right or wrong when it comes to an abstract. I think it's that's a neat thing, again, that we all have a different point of view and maybe some different concepts. That's what makes photography so much fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why I enjoy looking at other people's images, is because I always get new ideas and new ways to create. So,
Norm?
yeah.
Hutch, is Norm Spieler.
Yeah, hi.
Lloyd? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Oh, hi, Hutch. Norm Spieler. I want to, first of all, kind of parrot what Terry Mercer said. I think the last 2 months have been fabulous from the standpoint of us in terms of your analysis and showing how you can make things, how we can make things better. Plus, like you, I think I enjoy seeing the different ideas and what people submit. It certainly gives you things to look at. Just a point, I don't know if it would have made any difference. One of my shots was the spoon, but it's also a fork. And so that's why you saw the black, because it's a spoon and a fork, not just a spoon.
Oh. Well, there you go.
Yeah, and maybe what I should have done is emphasize that a little more.
I'm trying to think of where.
It was earlier on. That's it.
Gosh.
So you see, it's a spoon, and then it's a fork. It's a salad
like
thing.
a salad fork. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's when it's abstracted like that. It's thank you for pointing that out. That's pretty cool.
But the point that he made, Norm, about turning the fork a little bit more towards the spoon might have done what he's talking about, even though there's this part, that part in the fork is missing.
It might have narrowed that up.
Food service guy, I recognized it after he said spoon. I was right there with it. But that's a real nitpick, because that's hard to do. It's a great image. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, look at Google. Google the man-made object thing again, and what they do with forks and knives and spoons. It's just so much fun stuff you can do with kitchen utensils. And there's a bunch of them on there when you Google man-made object abstracts.
Yeah.
Thanks for pointing that out. That's great.
Hey, Linda, you were shaking your head when we were talking about champagne glass. What was that?
Oh, it's a Chardonnay. It's not a flute.
Oh,
Sorry.
Oh,
That's so funny.
That changes it. Hutch, would you please rescore that, because
They weren't bubbles. I poured the glass and it dripped down the side, and it was like pebbles, throwing pebbles in the ocean, hop, hop, hop. I'd never seen that before, so I had to stop what I was doing.
actually,
The
Yeah,
other one. Well, yeah.
I should have. I should have. My wife is a Chardonnay drinker, so I should have recognized that glass rather than. That's pretty obvious now. I just it was the previous one that really I had fun with that took me a while. I just love the everybody got
Yeah.
um, uh,
Linda,
the illusion here.
Linda, the Hutch was talking about of cropping it on the top. I was
Right. I got that.
I was
It's
thinking
funny.
about cropping
I,
it on the bottom.
exactly. I was thinking that's more the abstraction is in
Yeah.
the liquid, the reflection and
Yeah,
all I thought was abstract.
and the drops
Yeah.
and things
Yeah.
like that against the foil background. It looks like some kind of a foil blanket.
Yeah,
Or like a cloud.
from a standpoint of abstraction of being a whoops wrong guy. Uh, from a standpoint of it being abstract, I would agree with you completely that that would make a much better abstraction.
Yeah,
What I
Yeah.
was doing was really more exposing
yeah,
Yes.
the obstacle
cool.
illusion that was at the top.
Yeah.
Yes.
What really drew me to that the other night at the Thousand Oaks competition, somebody had a basketball net hoop, and it had the same exact optical illusion where you couldn't you looked up, it wasn't sure whether you were looking up through it or it was going down, and it was kind of exactly the same thing. But yeah, this would have good. Yeah, that's a good point because I think you would have really been more abstract with that bottom there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
Very
really
good. Well, thank
Cool.
you.
cool. Yeah,
Picasso-esque.
that's great. Anybody else have, before I take it off, another image that they wanted to take a look at or?
I really like what you did with making that that image of both the one of the wires and the one of
Oh, yeah.
a little arboretum type thing where you took it to high key and made it a lot more contrasty. It made it really powerful.
Yeah.
That one there.
Yeah, that one and yes, exactly.
Yeah, that again, but that's kind of an interpretive thing. It's
Of course.
I was a little bit reluctant to do it just from the standpoint that I'm fiddling with somebody else's art. But that figure to ground just becomes wham, really hits you.
Well, and it seems to change things like at the bottom, the way it leads you in from the bottom becomes even stronger to me.
Yeah.
I don't know why, it just does.
Oh, on the red shopping cart, it was towards the front end. You had inquired about shooting it. I'd taken probably 50 photographs of that shopping cart, but the one that I wound up with, I put it on its nose. It's standing on its nose, and I was up above on it on a perch on the side of a wall. So I could get the wheels in and everything, and I'm looking down, and the concrete deck was down below. And I didn't like the concrete deck. I couldn't, excuse me, I couldn't get the color right on the concrete. So I went back and I shot the whole thing in infrared.
Oh,
And so I wound up getting the colors that I wanted.
right.
And I just slightly modified one of the settings in Photoshop and brought out the color of the concrete. So that's how I got the background. I spent quite a lot of time just on the background alone.
Yeah. You guys know about the spot removal. God, I wish I was in.
Now, Terry, the picture that Terry's talking about is not the 8th one from the very beginning.
Yeah, mine was number eight or so.
Yeah,
It's a shopping cart.
this next one over.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that's it.
That one?
Nice.
Mm.
I like that a lot. what
Terry, did you say that
Yeah.
this is infrared?
The cart is sitting on its nose when I shot that, and I was standing way up above it.
oh, okay. Now I got what you're saying. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all the pattern in the background is actually the concrete down below
Wow.
that it was sitting on.
Oh, I was thinking it had been pushed up against the wall.
No.
I got it. Yeah.
Did you say this is infrared, Terry?
Yeah, I shot it with infrared.
Oh, wow. Very
Yeah.
cool effect.
I used the infrared because I had the gray concrete and I tried to change the color to make it look more interesting,
Oh,
and I couldn't get it done. So I wound up saying, well, I've just got an infrared conversion in a XT2 that I have. I thought, well, I'll try it in infrared with my XT2. I took a ton of shots with that, by the way, but I was able to get the coloring that I wanted using the IR.
wow. Very cool.
Cool.
I'm presuming that all of you are seeing the effect of the larger, smaller images, by the way. Are you not? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
when I show the difference in size,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really obvious, and we're going to take that to heart. I made some notes from.
that's not a Zoom thing. That's you're seeing what the
meeting.
judge is projecting. And you know, some judges will use like you know some of the software that just automatically does it, just brings it full screen, and you don't have the benefits of using Lightroom or ACR to change it. But it really is a shame. You know, you see some of these certainly does not hurt this image because it's going down, but some of these I really felt bad for Jerry.
I was to say that one there, I was swear I put that in at, really high res. I don't know how come it came out so small.
Yeah.
Jerry, did you upload that to the website or did you email that to?
No, I emailed it to Glenn, and then he told me next time to go through the website. So this was an email to Glenn, and so he probably sent it to you guys instead of me downloading.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, anybody find good experience or not on uploading through the website? Because that's something brand new that I gotta give
I'm
credit
gonna
to
do it
Glenn.
next time. I didn't know about it this time, so it came in.
I found it.
small.
I found it super easy to do.
Very
It
nice.
looks like it.
Yeah, it was easy. There's no problems.
Very easy.
You know, I
Hey,
don't-
Hutch, can I ask one more question? You've
Yeah.
been mentioning color. Are there some colors that are more powerful than others when you're judging? Are you drawn to the red or drawn to the yellow or?
No, you know, if you study color, there is no question that some colors are more, you know, blues are cool, calm, restful. Reds are, you know, fiery, powerful. They evoke emotion. So you know you can go Google up emotions of color or something like that, and you'll find that they're very psychological. They're very strong, powerful psychological influences that color have, and the combination of colors can be very powerful also. Where you know complementary colors tend to be much more powerful than trying to think of the term.
And contrasting?
No. It's complementary and oh God, having a senior moment.
Don't we all?
On the color wheel.
Analogous, isn't it? Hutch?
Analogous. Thank you.
Very good.
You know, on the color wheel, analogous colors are colors that are side by side. Complementary colors are opposites. So
Right.
red and green are complementary colors, and green and blue are analogous colors. Green and blue are much less strong and emotionally powerful than are red and green. Christmas, I mean, is red and green are just a very powerful emotional combination. So as you study color and the use of color, it can really influence your images and your photography in terms of how you use it. If you want, you want to portray in a, well, a good example would be you go to the Eastern Sierras. Why do you go in the fall? You go for all the powerful yellows and reds and, offset against the greens. So you're really strongly influencing that emotional impact. You go in the winter and you've got, blue sky, blue water, everything is green, it's very peaceful, it's very restful. It's a whole totally different emotional experience for the most part. I mean, that's not to say there can't be exceptions there, but perfect example. If a guy pulled up next to me today in a red Corvette, fire engine red Corvette, you think that thing didn't get my attention? Pulled up
And
next to me.
probably the CHP officer next to you.
Yeah, actually, I had a Corvette years ago. It was gray, and I never got a ticket in it, and I never had a front license plate on it. I had them painted red, and the first day I got 3 tickets. That's unreal. I thought, oh man, did I ever do something? But yeah, absolutely, color. And color is one of the elements of art. When you study the principles and elements, and I think I mentioned this last month in my presentation, to go Google up the principles and elements of art and study them. It made a huge difference in my life of photography, starting to understand, how the elements of art, which is line, shape, form, size, space, color, value, and texture, and I'm cheating because I'm reading them off, how those work to form the principles of art, which are balance, emphasis, movement, proportion, pattern, rhythm, unity, and variety. And you start understanding those things, and you start understanding how color can influence emphasis, color can influence balance, it can influence rhythm, it can influence all of those things. So you start combining those and thinking about those when you are making your images, and it certainly has been meaningful to me. And those elements have been around for centuries. Artists and graphic artists have been studying and using those literally for centuries.
I had the image that was the round skylight, and I made the sky chartreuse a different color, and I really struggled with what color to make it. That was the rough part.
I think you did a good job of picking that purple. I mean, it's impactful. It is abstract. It's outside the norm, and that's what abstracts are about, isn't it? They're outside the norm. They're you created. Look at that image and take again those elements of art. Line. It has shape. It does not have form. Form and shape are cousins. Form is three-dimensional, or has the appearance of three-dimensionality, whereas shape is physically geometric shape. So, well, I guess maybe you could argue that there's some form there, but size, the thing, instantly gives you the impression of being huge. Space is tension, positive, negative tension, and frankly, I think that your use of color along with space there, didn't that not create tension? Didn't it create some power. And then value is one of them, which is basically lightness and darkness and contrast. And certainly the purple emphasized that. I'm not so sure that a blue sky might have done the same job of emphasizing, because it would been cooler, calmer. You know, the purple is a little bit like red. It just kind of hits you in the face. So, you know, there's a lot of those elements that are working to make this image good.
Okay, thank you.
Hutch, could you scoot one photo to the left?
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah.
I did this and then the other one at the beginning, and I was inspired when you talked last month about in-camera movement. So it's a glass bowl with a light underneath, and I left the shutter open and I zoomed while I was taking the photo. And it was just a lot of fun to do that. It's impossible to get everything sharp. So I take your commentary is correct, and that there's parts that aren't sharp, but it was sure fun to play around with this.
I kind of wish I'd known that, and I'm kind of glad I didn't. Go on Facebook and look at some of the ICM groups that are getting together, and they're really doing a lot of really cool stuff with in-camera movement. That's kind of a regurgence of what we did in the 50s and 60s. And one of the guys, one of the guys that runs our Southern California Council of Camera Clubs, you know, he's Stuart's been camera clubbing since the 1940s. He's probably 86 years old. And we were talking about in-camera movement and how it got so bad he said it got so bad in the 40s and the 50s and 60s that they started disallowing it. Because that was the only creative thing that people did with cameras was in-camera movement. So now I think that there's kind of a rebirth or reemergence of doing that creatively. And I'm getting, you know, there's so much being done in Photoshop that kudos for you to go out and work it in the camera. I think that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's tough to get it all in focus, but good job. I presume that you were in relatively low light doing that.
Yeah, I tried to darken the room as much as I could.
Which left you time to turn at the Huntington Gardens. I tried to do ICM, you know, with a twist the zoom in daylight, and it's tough doing it when you got a short shutter speed. But
yeah,
it's fun to twist the shutter and move the camera at the same time. I mean, there's just all kinds of ways to play with it. So thanks for sharing that, Mike. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just looking at somebody.
We can keep going. I'm just going to just stop the recording, but that doesn't mean anything. I'm just going to stop.
Somebody in the chat said 1920 by 1080 high. I think it's